So hello everyone, my name is Sharif Islam, as Debopam surely mentioned, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the Media Lab. And today I would like to talk about some of our work. And before that, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. So even though it was initially like my advisor was invited, and she suggested the organizers that I can talk, and I think this workshop is more focused on satellites and satellite design and other things. But I would like to talk more about how we are actually using satellite technologies to support sustainable development in developing countries. And you might have seen these videos many times. And this showing NASA's fleet of satellite Earth observations. So they have many satellites which are taking, pictures of the Earth. And in our lab, we actually use multiple, data from multiple missions. And here, different missions are mentioned, but we use Landsat data mostly, but also use Terra, Aura, then SMAP data, and there are some others as well. And as I mentioned, our lab's goal is to actually, help in achieving sustainable development goals in some of the countries that we are working on. And we believe among these 17 different sustainable development goals, we are contributing to more than 8 or 10 sustainable development goals as SDGs. And I wanted to mention that one of the main aspect of our work is to actually, contribute to the problems related to climate action, climate change. So that is the main thing, but also we also contribute to other things as well, like no poverty or no hunger or, sustainable cities or others. And in our lab, so this is a framework called EBDT framework. And this framework was developed by Professor Wood, maybe 8-10 years back. And whenever we are working on environmental issues, we actually use this framework. So for example, we are looking at say coastal erosion problem in the US. And so the environment model actually looks at how we can actually use satellite data to model the shoreline movement. And also we look at other issues as well. So what are the socioeconomic vulnerability component, how people are vulnerable to these changes, and also looking at the decision making of the people as well as technology available to them. So the entire model she developed, we are using for all the projects we have. And environmental model is the model that I am going to talk more today, only the satellite Earth observation part, not going to talk about the vulnerability or decision making or technology model. So yeah, so we are using this framework for many different projects. And so some of the projects I will be talking is related to this five. And I will just talk about, so those are funded by mostly NASA, and the first one was funded by NSF. So those are big projects, and I cannot actually talk about everything in this presentation, but I would like to just give a glimpse what we are doing using satellite Earth observations. So the first project that I would like to talk about is related to coastal erosion hazard in Bangladesh. And then I will be talking about our current project in Angola, where we are assessing agricultural drought vulnerability. And I'm also going to talk about our project in Brazil, where we are estimating methane gas emissions from landfills in the city of Rio de Janeiro. And I would also like to talk about our project in Ghana, where we are using satellite data to look at deforestation due to artisanal mining. And lastly, I would like to talk about our work in Benin, where we're using satellite data to map water hyacinth issue there. And first, I would like to talk about the coastal erosion hazard in Bangladesh. And those who are from that region, like from India, Bangladesh, or South Asia, you know about the issue of flooding, cyclones, coastal erosion or riverbank erosions are very common in that region. And Bangladesh is one of the hotspot. And coastal erosion is one of the major natural disasters, and it occurs every year. And due to that, a lot of people are being displaced and they are moving to other areas. And we found that the erosion rates are among the highest in the world. So we looked at the existing literature and our result, and we found that the erosion rates are very high in that region. And as I mentioned already, erosion causes numerous problems, and one of the main problem is loss of livelihood. But there are other things that are also happening, like loss of households, productive lands, and infrastructure, and also like so many people are being displaced because of this issue. And one of the main thing is that here is the location itself. So if you look at this figure here, so this red boundary is showing the big basin called Ganges Brahmaputra Meghna Basin, and it's one of the largest basin in the world. And it has many rivers, and there are three big rivers like Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna. And Bangladesh is located here, but the delta region is mostly located in Bangladesh and the West Bengal of India. And so our study area was this yellow boundary here. So we wanted to see how shoreline is behaving there and predictive performance of how shoreline will behave in the future, as well as looking at people's vulnerability. So just like I mentioned about the EBDT framework. So we use the similar thing to look at different aspect. And yeah, so because of this, big river network, so it actually flows the water to the downstream to the Bay of Bengal. And when the water goes to the downstream to this Bay of Bengal, it actually erodes the riverbank, and that is a big issue there. And in this project, we actually use multiple satellite data. So one of the main data set that we used is Landsat, and using Landsat, we could actually go back, far beyond even 2000. Like so, in this project, we looked at how shoreline moved from 1988 to 2024. And in the figure here, you can see how decadally shoreline moved. So these red areas are showing extreme erosion, and the green area showing here is the accretion. So as I mentioned already, so for this project, the main data set was Landsat data, and that is publicly available. But we also use two other data sets. So one of the data set was Planet Labs, and that is a paid one of the companies that are selling the data. And also we use data from Maxar. So that is another satellite company who have like many satellites. And so we bought these two companies' data to actually look at erosion at finer scale, because the Landsat data is available at 30 meter. So we wanted to see, how is, this issue using the finer resolution data from Planet Labs. And Planet Labs data is available at 3.5 meter. And the Maxa data is actually available at centimeter scale. So we use their data set as well. So this is showing the pattern of historical shoreline movement, like how shoreline is moving. But one thing I would like to mention is that, so if you look at this dark red area, means the erosion rate is more than 300 meter. And if you think about, for example, in the US, how is the coastal erosion? So is that 10 meter, 20 meter? It's actually no. So in most places, it's not more than 1 meter per year. But I'm talking about 300 meter per year. And because of that, so many people are being displaced every year. So this one is showing is the same thing, but every 5 years, like how shoreline is moving. And it shows some of the areas that we studied are very prone to erosion, and it's very extreme actually. So if you look at the figure in the right side, so that is showing like how shoreline is moving every 5 years, and it's very extreme. And I'm not going to talk about the entire project. I just wanted to give a glimpse that we are using satellite data for different issues. So now I would like to talk about our project in Angola. And I just got back from Angola 2 weeks back, and we have a project there, and we are working with one of their agency called GGPN. It's like they are NASA, so they are a space agency. So we are working with them, and also some other, so company called Blue Raster. So we are working with them to, design a decision support tool so that they can use when the model is over, the project is over, they can actually use this decision support tool to take better decision. And for that, we are using a data set called SMAP, Soil Moisture Active Passive. So this data is provided by NASA, and that data is available from 2015. So every 2-3 days, they have observation globally. So we are using their data to actually measure water content in the soil. And so we are using the similar categories. So if you are familiar with the US drought monitor, maybe not, but the US Drought Monitor actually uses map data to actually look at soil moisture content, and they developed 5 different categories of drought, and so they are calling that D0 to D4. So when there is dark red means that is exceptional drought, so severely impacted by drought. And if you look at the just regular yellow, so it's actually showing abnormally dry soil. And if you look at this white areas means that there is no drought in that region. So we are using actually same technique and same categories to actually look at drought severity. And using that, we actually, so as I mentioned, like we are using the same thing to actually look at how Angola is impacted by this soil water deficiency, like the soil moisture content. How is that? So we actually, so if you look at this figure here, so it's showing one of the provinces in Angola. And so as I mentioned already in the previous slide, that the red dark areas are showing exceptional drought, and the yellow is showing abnormally dry. So in some areas, it's actually very highly impacted by drought in this region. And this video is showing how, so as I mentioned, like, the data is available at every 2-3 days. So we actually used all the images available to see how drought is changing over time. So this video is showing how this province called Kanene is impacted by drought over time. So this shows the historical pattern of drought in this region. And if I go to the next one, so this shows the time series. So it tells us, like, in which year, what time, what season is actually, this region was more impacted by, more or less impacted by drought. And if you look at these red areas in 2021 or 2019, so means that this time was, more impact of this exceptional drought. So these areas were regular drought kind of, but some of the time, some of the years were very extreme for this region. And this figure is showing actually how drought is changing over time from 2015 to 2023. So we just wanted to show this GIF or GIF to show, like, how it is happening for entire country. And the soil moisture content data was calculated for every 8 days and to show the drought level. And it shows, like, how different areas over time are, impacted by different categories of drought. And so now I would like to talk about our project in Brazil, where we are assessing greenhouse gas emissions, and we are helping the city of Rio to actually, complement their inventories so that, they can, in the future, they can actually use satellite data to actually look at greenhouse gas emissions from, multiple sources. So one of the sources that we looked at is actually landfills. And so this is one of the poster we presented to NASA because they are giving us the funding. And if you look at this different parts, you can see that, so for example, like, here we mentioned the description and objectives. So the main objectives for this project was to supplement the city of Rio to actually help them to get idea about, how they can actually use satellite data to actually complement their way of calculating these emissions. And they are actually doing that using a method provided by GPC and IPCC. So they are using that. So our idea is that how we can actually give them the data they need, and also, the procedure they can follow to estimate, methane gas emissions from landfills using satellite data. So that was the main idea. And for that, the main data set that we used is called Greenhouse Gas Set. So that is a company like Planet Labs or Maxer. And to complement this data set, we also use data from Prisma as well as Nmap. So we also looked at data from what is called Sentinel-5 as well. But the problem is the Sentinel data has higher resolution, not higher resolution, coarser resolution. So that was the issue, and that's why we actually use these three to actually look at the plume. And if I go to that So I'm not going to talk about these key findings or utility of greenhouse gas set data, but I would like to just show this summary slide. So we are using greenhouse gas set data to actually see if there is a plume on top of a infrastructure like landfills. So this is a big landfills, active landfills, and we found that there is a big plume out of this. We had, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 observations in total. And out of these 25 observations, we found that only one plume. And using this plume, so this plume size and the pixels and all this, so we calculated, how much, how much methane gas is being emitted from that landfill. So using that, we could actually compare with the estimation of city of Rio de Janeiro, and they found that their emission rate is 4,574, but they are not using satellite data. So they're using some other method, like how much trash they are dumping on that landfills and some other factors they actually included in the process of estimating this emission rate. But this greenhouse gas set company, they found that the emission rate was 4,225 25 kilogram per hour, and our estimation was that 4,344. So all these three observations are pretty similar. So meaning that this data set might be useful for future estimation of to complement their estimation of greenhouse gas emissions using IPCC. So now I would like to talk about our project that we had in Ghana. So we actually use Landsat data to actually look at the deforestation due to artisanal mining in southwestern Ghana. And there were multiple institutes which were part of this project. And one of the main institute was Ghana Space Agency. And we also collaborated with Ghana Statistical Service for other part of the project. So not the satellite, the Earth observation part, the environmental model, but the socioeconomic vulnerability and the decision-making part. So they are involved as well. So this project was also funded by NASA. And as I mentioned, we only looked at the southwestern region, and this is located in the coast. And so these blue lines are showing major rivers in the country. And this region is actually having different gold mining activities happening, and because of that, people are cutting the forest and all this. So this slide here is showing some information related to gold mining. So you might know or don't know, Ghana is the 7th largest producer of gold worldwide, and artisanal mining. So if you don't know the term artisanal mining, so those are small scale mining, and so artisanal mining has increased from 5% of gold production in 1990 to 30% in 2012. So meaning that artisanal mining is increasing over time. And because of artisanal mining, deforestation is happening, and it produces mercury pollution in the environment. So that is bad for the environment and the people. So yeah, so we use Landsat data to actually see how this mining is increasing or decreasing. And you can see like over time, it's actually the trend would be it's increasing a lot. So yeah, so we just wanted to see like how these urban areas or forested areas are being converted to mining and how that pattern is happening. And this figure is showing how how is the mining and large mining. So if you look at this figure here, so this orange areas are actually showing the large mines. So those are companies who are digging digging for gold, and this yellow areas are showing artisanal mining. And so from 2015 to 2019, so this is showing like how area where different areas were converted from vegetation to mining, and about 86% of the converted mining areas were actually artisanal mining, not large mining. And about 14% of the so yeah, so out of this 100%, 14% are converted to large mine. So 14% is large mine and 86% are converted to artisanal mining. And I think I have a few more minutes. And yeah, so this is the last project that I would like to talk. And in this project, we use satellite data to actually look at how is the water hyacinth, especially is increasing or decreasing over time in the areas called Lake Nokui in Benin. So this is a French word. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. So we use Landsat data to actually look at how is the water hyacinth extent in this lake. So this is showing the lake, and it is the largest lake in Benin. And this is actually important. Like you might think why we are looking at lake. It's actually because of the many people are dependent for their livelihood on this lake. So that's why this is very important. And there are other ways other things as well. So people actually use boats to navigate from one village to other. So it's a big lake, but people actually use this kind of boats to navigate from one areas to another. So this is important for transportation as well. And during some of the so one of the seasons, like some of the areas actually decompose like this, and this is another bad thing for odor and other things, other issues as well. And our lab is actually using this Landsat data to actually see how is this happening, like water hyacinth growth over time for some time, like 30 years, 35 years. And the final product that we are going to have, so this is a prototype that we developed working with Blue Raster. So they are a company who are helping us to develop this decision support tool. So the idea is that, we will have the satellite Earth observation data, like, we analyze that data to see water hyacinth extent, but also combining other informations related to socioeconomic vulnerability and decision-making aspect as well in this decision support tool. So the final tool would be combining all this, and then when the project is over, we'll just hand it over to some of our collaborators so that they can actually maintain this tool and monitor this water hyacinth issue and take better decisions in terms of the issue of that. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.